that was my worst nightmare. And obviously from this phone call, I was thinking, okay, this isn't looking positive, but there's no way in which I'm happy to let that slip. Why I really didn't want to leave Intense. Like, we put far too much effort into that bike, and okay, my motivation is to get 2 million budget and go out and sign like Bruni, Loris Vergier, and whoever else. My goal is to win a World Cup overall as an elite. And I think that's realistic. It's just going to take a bit of time settling in. And
days we had 2 broken trucks and 1 broken arm.
And now that has, of course, come at a cost. And
Ollie Morris, Joe Breeden, welcome back to the Downtime podcast. Ollie, we'll start with you, man. I've missed our chats. It's been a while since the last post-race show of last year. How's things?
Yeah, good, thank you. Yeah, we're going to have to start, doing post-races for, regional rounds through the winter or something to stay in touch, Chris, aren't we? But,
be nice,
yeah,
man.
also missed our chats. It's, looking forward to getting into the season. And although with this new job, probably kind of happy to have a little bit more time to do some prep. But, looking forward to getting stuck in. Thanks, mate.
Yeah, you're going to be busy. We'll hear all about that in a second. And Joe, how about you, man? It's been a while. Are you good?
Yeah, very well, thank you. Again, the most hectic, biggest amount of graft I've ever seen in my life, but stoked to be where we are now, and in New Zealand, finally sort of easing back into training. So yeah, I'm stoked.
Nice. How long have you been out in New Zealand?
Oh, we're just coming up to 1 week now, so first week of a month trip.
Very nice. That'd be fun. And you're living with a pretty fast crew?
Yeah, it's a hectic crew, that's for sure. We've got Ronan Dunn, who I'm going to learn a lot more from living with, and we've got Andrew Kolb and Charlie Hatton here too. So yeah, it's some hell of a crew, to be fair.
Excellent. Good work, man. Well, we're here to chat about the new incarnation of the Intense Factory Racing team. Before we do that, Joe, let's just recap a little bit on your last few seasons quickly. You'd had a couple of top 10s at World Cups in 2020 and 2021. The last seasons have been more challenging for you, I guess, from an injury perspective. What's been going on? You've had a few things that you've had to deal with, eh?
Yeah, the transition to Intense Factory Racing in 2022 was, we had a whole new bike, whole new products, whole new team. So for me, turning up at the first World Cup, still very much on a new prototype bike that was changing every week. Also, whole new team in terms of riders, brands, staff. I rocked up to Lords the first World Cup of that year, and the only person I knew there was my mechanic Stout. So I just, it was a huge learning week, should we say, even just getting to know everybody and feel familiar in the environment that I was in amongst the team. That with a new bike and everything, it was challenging, and I didn't perform well there at all. I rode pretty stiff and just didn't feel comfortable. And then, moving into Fort William, we had quite a block, and I made some huge steps forward and started to feel real confident. And I think I qualified top 30. And then, in my race when I shattered my elbow. So before I had time to settle in and become familiar with everybody and everything and confident, I was straight in the hospital with a very bad elbow injury. So from there, it was just, a huge recovery process, and that in itself was multiple surgeries and another huge challenge. So 22 was a bit of a write-off, but I learnt a ton. And then 23 again was a bit of a struggle, but yeah, it's what put me here now. So I can't complain. Everything happens for a reason, and last 2 years have been super stiff, but I think, as I said, we would not be in this position now, which I feel is great, given the struggles the last couple of years. So it's meant to be. I'm happy with it, and not every year is going to be smooth sailing. I came off a great 2 years before that, and hopefully looking forward to another great 2 years coming up now. So, yeah.
Good stuff, man. Before we move on from last season's racing now, I just want to hear about that incredible save at Val di Sole from your perspective. That was one of the biggest saved moments I think I've seen in mountain bike racing for a while.
Yeah, a lot of people bring that one up. To be fair, that is a significant example of my struggles last year, even in 2022, is the arm pump. I think I was actually on a good one in Val d'Isole. I think running top 15, and then towards even the second half of the track, I really struggled to control the bike anymore because of arm pump. And by that point, the last drop into the braking bumps, I had like nothing left in my arms, and I just hit a braking bump slightly wrong, and left hand blew off, probably the highest speed section of the track. And I didn't manage to get it back on for a while, but fortunately got it back on just in time before I nearly went over the bars onto my head. So yeah, if you haven't seen that clip, I mean, it explains it all. It's pretty gnarly, and I was hugely frustrated, but at the same time pretty thankful that I didn't end up back in hospital. So that was just a prime example of the struggles I've been facing with arm pump, and still something I'm trying to figure out right now.
Yeah, and potentially something in the locker this year that may help with that, so we can chat about that in a sec. But before we do talk about kind of the upcoming season, how much involvement did you have alongside your mechanic John with the development of the bike as it stands now? Were you kind of involved in that? Because we hear talk of Aaron doing a lot of work at Windrock, but I think you had some say in some areas of it as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I did a huge amount of testing for that bike, huge volume of laps across the whole the last 2 years. And me and John, I think played a pretty influential role of key developments. Of course, don't carry the name of Aaron Gwynn, and Aaron Gwynn has that huge experience for what bikes work and don't work. So I think it was a collective team effort amongst everybody. But I'd be surprised if anybody was doing the number of laps that I was doing. They always used to joke at Intense about that. But yeah, everybody brought something to the table, and I think me and Stout brought some great steps forward with the bike. And that was kind of another reason as to why I really didn't want to leave Intense. Like, we put far too much effort into that bike, and where it's at now, it's like there's no way I could have helped develop that bike to the level I did, and the amount of effort I put in, and then just walk away from it as soon as it hits production. Like, that was just no way going to happen. I couldn't do that.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, makes a lot of sense. At what point in the season did you know then that the team wasn't continuing in at least in that guise into the 24 season? When did you find out? I think it was quite early for you guys, right?
Yeah, fortunately it was World Champs Fort William where I had the call from Intense. So, plenty of time from then on. Like, that call on, I was straight to work, because as I said, that was like my worst nightmare. Was always that I'd put everything into this bike development wise, and obviously to the level we were committed to developing made it very difficult to race, because I was thinking, right, this is a bike that I'm hopefully going to race for the next several years to come, so if I put everything into it now, then I should seek the rewards for the years to come. So the worst nightmare is to do that work and then the program discontinue and me not ride Intense, and to rebuild with another brand. Like, that was my worst nightmare. And obviously from this phone call I was thinking, okay, this isn't looking positive, but there's no way in which I'm happy to let that slip. My years with Intense I'm too attached to them, and then now attached to the bike. There's like, okay, there's a way, there's something we can do to make this happen, and and that's what we've ended up with here. So huge graph from World Champs Fort William. That's when the news broke, and to our launch, which was a few weeks ago now. Yeah.
So what was going through your head? Obviously, you're like, right, I want to keep working with Intense. I like this bike. I put a huge amount of work into it. How many kind of iterations did you go through before you were like, oh, hang on, maybe I'll just be the team owner and we'll create a whole new team around this? Like, how do we get to that point, I guess?
That's a very good question. I think I've always wanted to run a team, but never did I think it'd come this early in my career. Of course, immediately on that call, before I even come off it, I thought, okay, this might be the time, this might be the opportunity to run a team and stay with Intense. So initially from the off, I thought that it could be a way to make it happen. I didn't know if it was realistic or not, but I thought, let's start exploring the routes. Let's start having the conversations with brands and people, and every conversation just went better than I ever could have imagined, should we say. And everything started to line up, and I thought, hang on a minute, this might actually be happening, this could actually happen. And I think a huge part of it is that I could see a great vision for a team environment, great people to fill every role. And without that, it would not have been possible, because of course it goes far beyond me, this team. And I just thought I could see such a good path for who to bring in. And with that, I saw a great team, I saw great brands, I saw great people, and hopefully a successful program. So without the likes of, say, John Stout, my mechanic, who's been head mechanic for UR for, I don't know, over 5 years. He's been my mechanic for the last 3 years. I knew he could come to the table and bring all that experience in from the head mechanic standpoint. Obviously had my eyes on Ollie, who I knew was kind of coming to the point of being in a position to want to take on a team manager role. And so, they're two critical aspects. And then I have Mark Griffiths, who was prepared well. After, I wanted to sign Oscar Griffiths, his son. Turns out he could help me from sort of more of a business standpoint, because, I'm a rider, I'm an athlete. I've never ran, should we say, a business like this before. So kind of all parties coming together. I was like, God, we've got a great team here. Like, brands are on board, let's make it happen.
Nice, man. At what point did Ollie become part of the vision then? How long ago did you guys start talking about it?
We kind of flirted with the idea. I think Ollie had no idea what I was doing, but I was like digging deep, trying to question where he was at, what he wanted to do. But he honestly, for the first few months, had no idea what I was cooking up, because I didn't want to promise anybody anything before I knew it was going to happen. So I was just kind of doing that with everybody, figuring out where they're at, what they want to do, would they fit the role. And then, I think I held off on Ollie for a long, long time. And then just at the start of the year, we confirmed it, the role. So maybe ask Ollie on that as well, because, I know there's a lot of people that I was questioning quite deeply without telling them why or what I was doing. And Ollie was one of those.
Go on, Ollie, talk about that from your experience.
I have to say, I was chuckling away as Joe was saying there, because I remember probably only since Joe saying just on this podcast that he'd had the initial call with Intense at the World Champs in Scotland, and I remember that was when the first kind of conversation was. I wouldn't even call it a conversation, just like him just questioning me, just asking me what I'm wanting to do next year and all this stuff. And if I'm honest, I just thought it was a good friend interested in where I was at. I never really thought it was anything more than that. And as he asked a few more times, not just that weekend, but over the following months, again, I was like, I knew he was then sort of maybe trying to pull something together. But if I'm brutally honest, and I haven't told Joe this, I kind of thought he was dreaming a bit at the time. I was like, look, if we can get this band back together from the Intense UK days, then I'm keen. But I was sort of thought, let's let him go and see what happens. And then, but then as it got closer and closer to be fair, by the sort of end of the season, nicely into the off season, I knew it was a reality, because we had started having some more kind of firm conversations at that point. But I think Joe would be honest in saying he wasn't in a position budget wise to put me in place at that point. I don't think he had the pieces of the puzzle completely sorted to be able to guarantee. So I was sitting there kind of waiting for the phone call more than anything else. Also slightly panicking that if I got the phone call, that I knew there was an awful lot of work to do.
For sure. Yeah. How do you feel about taking on a team manager role? Because your background within the sport anyway is like the performance side. So you've been working with Laurie Greenland, you've been working with the Mondraker or MS Mondraker team over the last couple of years, helping trackside, helping with performance. But you also run your own businesses. You've got a coaching business. You've got a background in the corporate world. How do you feel about expanding into this management role, right? Because it's a lot broader than, I guess, what you've been doing in the race space anyway for the last couple of years.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, on a personal note, I feel like it's the ideal time for me. It's whether that be because of age or where I'm sort of placed in my kind of career within the industry and within the sport. It's the right time, and that's probably the one thing I said to Joe back in sort of August time at the World Champs, that I'm ready for that kind of next stage personally. Yes, and you're right. So there's this kind of situation of using hopefully my experience from my corporate days where I was like managed teams and in managed training teams across the UK. I obviously had that little bit of experience with Intense UK. Obviously, it was mostly national, with then sending the likes of Joe and Charlie to World Cups. So there was bits and pieces there in terms of UCI, but it wasn't it wasn't anywhere near the role that we're doing this time. But in simple, I'd summarise it as I'm ready. Like, naturally, there's going to be some learnings. Joe's aware of that, but hopefully, I can bring a bit fresh set of eyes to the project. I mean, I think I've learned a hell of a lot in the first 3 weeks that I've been doing the job already. To be fair, like PR was not a strong point of mine, and now I've kind of, since we've had to do this launch, and I've had great support, obviously, from Intense and the likes of Mark, and obviously Joe's been involved in the PR side of things. But that's been a huge learning curve already. So definitely lots to learn going into it with the vulnerability that I think anybody should have. But itching, like I would, if I'm honest, like my creativity is just like going, and I think I have to check in with Joe every now and again, but can't wait to get going with some ideas.
Good stuff. So it was an obvious yes for you then. You weren't, there was no like debate as to whether you'd take the role if it existed.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I was like I say, just for a time of life, but also, to be fair, beyond that, like I say, me and Joe have worked with each other and ridden with each other for years, and actually even after Intense UK, me and Joe would always spend time at national races. It would always be us two, like even during my times on Mondraker or Pivot, like at nationals, me and Joe would always meet and we'd always do the national racing together. So I think the other side of it is the relationship side of things, and that's super important, isn't it? Knowing that you're going into something that you're going to be able to work with the people you're going to spend basically the condensed whole of your summer with, and then obviously certain points through the winter with.
For sure. I remember seeing you at National Champs last season. You were riding with Joe all weekend in the mud, and I don't think I've ever seen you with a bigger smile on your face. Like, you were so happy with life.
Well, yeah. I mean, yeah, you see it in action. It's fun. And isn't that that's the first thing about, I think, why Joe and I, like Joe's and my kind of focus here is that like that vibe, that fun side of things is going to be huge, and that's the sort of starting point of any sort of level of performance in both our eyes. And I think that's why hopefully that's why Joe took me on, and why I wanted to be involved with the team.
Nice. Yeah, sounds good, mate.
To expand on that, like that's a huge point. I think for me, the two main focuses were, number one, team environment, and carrying on from what we discussed before, I felt I could foresee that perfect group, and of course nothing's ever going to be perfect, but a very good group, very solid group, and so team environment is always the priority. And as I say, I think people like Ollie, Stout, all the riders I had in mind, and the rest of the staff bring such a good vibe, and that was, I would say, the single thing I thought about the most. And of course it's like the amount of imagination that went through my brain of trying to piece together, like, okay, how's Ollie and Stout going to work together? That's my mechanic. How's Ollie and all the riders going to get on? How's the mechanics going to get on with the riders and the brands? It's like that was the thing I probably spent the most energy trying to think about, because over all my years, I think I've understood how far team environment goes in terms of performance. I think you would take worse product and have a great team environment rather than good product and a bad team environment. Simply because if you're in a happy place and you're, that puts you in a position to send it, to be committed, to happily commit and to enjoy racing. That's what really matters. And of course, a close second was then the lineup of products. And as you can see from our lineup, of brands, there was no compromise there. So those were the two key aspects, and environment goes above and beyond everything in my eyes. So yeah, Ollie's a great addition to that.
Yeah. Tell me a bit about then how you pull all this together. I guess we need to, maybe we start off with budgets. I don't want to pry too much, but if we take rider salaries out of the equation, what sort of sum of money are you needing to try and raise in order to get 4 riders and all the team staff around a season of World Cups in like relative comfort? Just to give us a ballpark figure of the sort of sum of money you've got to find.
Yeah. I think ballpark for the level we'll be doing at first year is around 200,000. Okay. give or take. That's of course no salaries, nothing. We've got to be efficient and effective with how we spend. But yeah, 200 plus salaries is possible, feasible. We're fortunate that we've got a lot of assets in terms of vehicles and pit setup and stuff like that. So that's taken all of that out of the equation. We don't need to buy any assets as such right now. So yeah, that's it. But then salaries is a big portion of it, so it goes a lot up after that.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, the actual numbers are a lot bigger.
Yeah, I always knew that this year was going to be an extremely difficult year to launch and run a team, and so from day one, I knew that we had to try and target financials from outside the industry. So I'll be honest, that has been the biggest push of all. And right now we have nothing signed to bring to the public and push, but it's something we're very close to introducing, and that would be kind of a major step for us, and I think for the industry, and that's somewhere I really want to drive it, because I think we have an amazing show with huge potential, but we just need to sell that, to pitch that to external industry brands and really get it out there to to be known. Because I'd be amazed if anybody walks up to Leger World Cup and is disappointed. Like that event is so unique, the downhill races are so unique, and the racing's getting tighter and tighter, and there's a new winner every almost every round last year. It's, in my eyes, an unbelievable sport that is just not witnessed enough. So I'm trying to help push that direction. And I think that's the way it will start to go in the coming years. And for me, as I say, it's been a huge push, but right now we haven't got a firm thing that we can promote as of yet, but we're pretty close, and I knew that is critical given the current state of the industry, our industry, the cycling industry.
Yeah, not an easy time. I was going to say, to go out and ask for cash from people for race teams when we've heard of many riders without deals, we've heard of teams folding, all this kind of stuff. It must have been tricky. Like, how important was your network in all of this? Because you're the kind of guy, I think, that makes an effort with people when you meet them, and I'm guessing maybe some of that stuff started to really pay back, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That was something else which sort of gave me the confidence to be able to pursue this, and that's the relationships I built up over the years within the industry. I felt like to pretty much any brand I have a good contact and a good relationship and can go to and have a conversation, like an open conversation, share the vision, explain what we want to do, and then see if they want to come on board. So within the industry, it's not so much of an issue. Like, I've been professional for 6-7 years and always pushed like the relations side of things, something I really enjoy. I love the connection between people. But the external industry is a lot tougher because I don't know that, anything outside of my industry really, really well. But I've just had to be creative, and we've had to be creative in thinking of ways to get in, and, it's a new challenge, and forming new relationships is something I've always loved. So that's been a really exciting project in itself. That's a whole different avenue, which is the biggest job of them all, but also the most exciting one. So yeah,
it's good that you've been enjoying it, man. How was Jeff Stieber's response when you said you wanted to recreate intense factory racing?
I think he was excited, though. I think he was always quite, what's the word? I wasn't sure he was confident in the scale we were going to do it. I'm not sure he was confident. I'm 24. He knows me as a rider, nothing more at that point. So I think he was a little bit, okay, this is super cool and we want to push it, but let's see what it actually looks like. And I know when we got to team camp in California, I think he was a little bit gobsmacked by the sort of level at which we were doing it in terms of, product, riders, staff, media production. I think he was like, wow, okay, they actually mean business and they're here to do things properly, not just mess about. So I think from team camp, he's set and pretty stoked now. Like, he seemed to be pretty buzzing and well supportive of our program. So
nice. Ollie, you look like you were going to add something.
I was just going to add to that. I think buzzing is an understatement. Once Jeff got the bikes out there on the track, he was texting me every morning like, "Oh, how the guys getting on? How the bikes? How's this?" He was just. I was almost like. I felt like I was like the next day I was like, do you want to come with us, Jeff? Like for the testing, I know you're a busy man, but he was so buzzing about it. Which just, that then, it's infectious, isn't it? When somebody's like that then helps you even more, like want to deliver for that person, for that brand. So yeah, it was receiving those texts. I actually started preempting them. So like by about day 3 or 4, I started texting him in the morning a little photo of the boys or, the guys on the bike and stuff like that, just to keep him in the loop. So yeah, great to see.
Yeah, definitely, man. It's awesome. So Joe, tell us a bit about who you've got on board then. What sponsors have you brought on for what bits of the bike?
So as I mentioned before, it's one hell of a dream build and everything was, every decision was not taken lightly. So from the ground up, we've obviously got the Intense M1 frame, which is coming into production to the public in, I think, spring this year. So as I mentioned before, a huge part of it. I believe the bike is for sure the best one I've ever ridden. And I'd be surprised if there's anything on the market that is better. To be honest, so that's huge. Frame is everything. And then suspension, Öhlins. I actually spent quite a lot of time testing multiple brands, over the last few months, trying to figure out which was the best performance route for us. And I was very confident in the decision to move with Öhlins. Many reasons on that front. And then from there, Continental Tires again, tested almost everything, all the major brands for sure. And that was a pretty clear winner for me. So committed there. Then One Up simply for the cockpit. Coming back to the arm pump thing, we've been trying to get as much compliance through the bike, whether that's wheels, tires, cockpit, suspension. I think One Up was a great lineup for that, with the design of handlebars. And then what have we got? E13. I've been with them for years. I think over 4 years now, and they're so great to work with, like the engineers and the owners, always looking to push and sort of innovate new stuff and lead the field in terms of technology. And me and Stat have played quite a big role in that development side over the years, and some of the stuff they've got coming is super exciting. So that was an obvious one for us. That's hubs, rims, cranks, chain guide, stuff like that. And then what else am I missing? There's a couple partners still to be confirmed, like saddle, grips. But yeah, they're the major ones. And then obviously Troy Lee Designs head to toe. I've been personally with Troy Lee for years. I maybe think 5 years of my career. But to get the whole team in Troy Lee is amazing. So yeah, it's just a dream setup, head to toe, body and bike. So yeah, pretty stoked.
Yeah, what about brakes? Don't think we talked brakes.
Brakes, yeah, good point. We've gone TRP for brakes, which is cool. And then one other fact I forgot actually is JTEC. He's tuning company, suspension tuning company out of the UK. I've done a lot of my testing and work with him since I was a youth. And the opportunity came up to bring them in as our sort of testing and servicing centre. So the riders are, I know next week, Oscar, our junior's got a telemetry or data acquisition day with Jim, and he's tuning our suspension internally and getting everybody set up to the kinematics of the bike and riding styles and weight of everybody on the team. So they're a critical partner from a performance standpoint to get everything running sweet, and that's been amazing so far.
Yeah, nice, man. Have you been in a position where every decision has been able to be like you've had a choice and you've picked the best performing? Have you turned down like higher sums of money potentially to take product that performs better? Like, I can't imagine in the industry at the moment that it's like you can be in a position that's quite that good, but you've managed to achieve it.
No, absolutely. I'll be honest, like we had on the tyres side, on the suspension side, particularly the more major partners, should we say, we had significant financial offers, which were very tempting for obvious reasons, budget to meet and blah, blah, blah. But I decided that it just wasn't longevity of the team and performance-wise, it wasn't worth it. So I just literally at every hurdle chose the best product, the product which I felt gave the team the highest chance of success in the coming years. And now that has, of course, come at a cost, and basically the easiest way for me to be able to make that happen is just simply not to pay myself. So as a rider, I'm not taking anything out of the team whatsoever. In fact, quite the opposite of putting money in, and that was simply so that all of us could run the best product. I could have taken the bigger financial deals and paid myself and not had to invest. But as I said before, performance is at the top of our priority list in terms of product. So I just wanted to stick by that, and I think longevity of the team, it will be rewarded for us all.
Fair play, mate. Good on you. Yeah, the vision is clearly very performance focused. And other than like the bike and the components, maybe Ollie, we can shoot to you on this one. Like, what do you think's needed to be put in place from like a staff and infrastructure perspective to support that performance goal? Because every team goes at it a bit differently, right? And budgets are different everywhere. But what sort of stuff did you guys feel was important?
Yeah, good question. And I think for us, and I think this feeds on from what Joe's saying, but it starts actually at the riders themselves and the staff for that matter, but the people within the team. So we've obviously, as the list that Joe's gone through of equipment is, your kind of wish list almost, isn't it? You know what I mean? You'd go through those. In fact, Joe, I think the only one you missed is the pedals. The whole team are on HT pedals. Again, awesome brand. And to be fair, so supportive, like really engaging brand from even the few weeks that I've been involved. And for what is actually quite a small part, but they've been very involved and very, very supportive up until now. So yeah, like you say, you've got the equipment, but the people is kind of the biggest thing, and that's where, for me, it's going to be trying to set up a whole environment that is for those people. So and I haven't even gone into some of these ideas with Joe yet, but there's quite a lot around like the pits that I want to kind of create a kind of a rider experience, should you say? And I don't mean experience that where they can just go and watch movies and things like this. I mean experience as in like try and make it as smooth running as they can as they work their way through their day, through their weekend, and then obviously so they can hopefully get to the point of racing as smooth as they can. So there's things around the pits. There's things then around obviously the planning side of things. So making sure that it's as smooth as we can. With planning and putting things in place that, again, just make it easier. That's kind of, I think, what performance is. Like, I think a lot of people speak about performance as the performance person's the person that makes the rider win, whereas I just see it as that it makes it easier for the rider to win, if that makes sense. So yeah. If we can put everything in place, we've got a great group of riders, which I'm sure we'll go through in more depth in a minute. They've all got the right attitude, which is so important. Like I think I probably said on the podcast last year, the post-race, that I'd always say attitude beats lines. But to a point, attitude beats talent. Yes, you do still need talent as well. If you come in, you can't ride a bike and you have great attitude, it's probably not quite there. But with that great attitude, you'll soon bloody learn. And I think that's the thing. So, the right attitude, right behaviours, the right things in place, make it as easy as we can, and then we can see, like I say, we'll see where these people end up in terms of results.
Yeah, definitely. Joe, talk to us about team infrastructure. You mentioned that you hadn't had to invest significantly in like assets for the team. What will the setup be like? I'm assuming you won't be rolling in year one in a massive articulated truck, but
no.
Really, Joe? Are we not?
for the that was very much a dream for a while. When I thought we could still secure external industry partner for this year, that was an idea, and we had it all priced up as to how and why and what, and of course that makes it logistically challenging, financially challenging, particularly the initial outlay. So I think that will come. We've got our eyes on the future for that, that's for sure. But yeah, for now it's like there's so many things that are new. Let's not complicate it too much, and we haven't currently got the financials to even have done it, so it wasn't realistic for this year. But we've got half the intent set up from last year already, that intent's owned, so we'll have that, and then we'll have to buy another easy up on top of that just to go with it, and then we've got awnings off vans, and between us we've all got vans we can use and a motorhome, which will all make the setup. So it's basically going to be 2 vans with a trailer, motorhome, and then those easy ups that we've had with intense factory racing for the last couple of years. So pretty good setup. I know Ollie's already been planning the setup at the pits to be most effective for all staff and riders, and it's looking great. So I think we'd just be super efficient with what we've got, and look to build from there for the years to come. But it's going to be very similar to what I've been on with intense factory racing for the last couple of years.
Yeah, nice. How do you go about choosing the riders then, Joe? It sounds like you were able to just go and pick up the exact riders that you wanted. Is that actual reality? Like, could you just stroll in and get everyone you wanted straight off, or?
It was a long process. I wouldn't say first phone call done, contract done by end of day. Definitely not. Again, it was not something I took lightly, because I understood the riders are key components to this overall team environment, which I was so focused on. Equally, there were a lot of riders up and available, so there was actually quite a lot of options. Again, I think in the early stages, I was talking with riders, but not really telling them why or what I was doing, just as a friend and interest, to see where everybody was at and who was interested in the move and who wasn't. And I had loads of conversations, getting to know people better, playing with, certain, should we say, forms of team that I think would build, because, you can't just, you have to be, I think, choose quite wisely the people you bring together, and that be confident they'd actually feed off each other and help each other and build together rather than against each other. So that was critical. Without naming names, like there was several top elites that I had conversations with, but by the end was not realistic in the time frame that we had. And then Oscar Griffiths was a junior who I always knew I wanted. I've coached him for over 12 months now, and done a lot of camps with him and helped him from both the technical aspect on the bike and just psychological in terms of performing at the races. And that kid has talent like I've never coached talent like that before. And along with that, of course, you need the work ethic. And I've seen that he has both, and he's shown extreme speed last year, but just never posted consistently in terms of results. And so that's kind of what, you have to know behind the scenes to really see that without, those hitting results every week in, week out. And so Oscar, I knew, was I really want to support that kid. His work ethic's there. He's so new to the sport, and the speed he's going with only 3 years in racing is ridiculous. So for me, bang, exciting junior. Let's try and, give him the program to develop into, an elite champion. And then, from that, it was okay, where do we want to build? Oscar's a great person personally. He's lovely to be around. He's super friendly, super supportive. and not hard working anyway. So team environment box ticked, ability box ticked, and then Louise is fantastic. I've watched her ride, and she just looks super free and loose, like a natural ability on a bike, or should we say developed skills on a bike over the years are just fantastic. And there's very few females who ride like that. And then again, the attitude she carries, positivity, energy, that was evident in our first team camp. The positivity in the worst scenarios is unbelievable. So that goes a long way again for the whole team and keeping everybody high. And then her first year of racing World Cups was 2022, and she had her first World Cup podium already in her second World Cup. And then last year was her first full season racing World Cups, and she had 4th world champs and showed great speed. Alongside that, she was Red Bull Hardline, voted Rider of the Week at Red Bull Hardline, which is insane. Like the jumps she was doing, and with the confidence and commitment she had, was just, again, not really seen. So I think, given the experience and a great platform, team-wise, she's got huge potential. And then Ryder Lawrence rounded out the board for us. Exciting 16-year-old first-year junior from California. He's been with Intense for years and years, and his dad used to ride for Intense back in, I don't know, I could be wrong, like the 90s or something, far before my time. I think that opened us kind of to not just be sole UK riders. We've got, a US-based rider who has an insane sort of history of riding BMX freestyle, BMX racing, and then more recent years, again, downhill. And I think, again, that his commitment to it, his natural ability, skills across the board, is fantastic. And he brings a different attitude to the team of like a pretty bad, I call him a bad dude. Like he's just I don't even know how to explain him. Like Ollie, how would you explain Ryder? He carries a different character, which is just fantastic.
He does, yeah. It's so funny because when you put him next to Oscar, so similar age, Oscar's second year junior, Ryder first year, but similar age, similar sort of speed, all this stuff, but their background both in the sport and in life is just completely different. Like you've got Oscar from Surrey, growing up in the south of England, only been riding a few years, but like that dedication, commitment, and obviously the support he's had from the likes of Joe has got him to his speed. And then you've got Ryder, like with this like typical Southern Californian dude, like lives on a ranch, just up the road from Temecula, rides dirt bikes. You can kind of get the image. But what's actually kind of cool with the two of them, and sure, it's only been a week, but they got on really, really well. It was like chalk and cheese in terms of background, but both of them got on so well, and they were almost gotten better when you left them on their own a little bit, So it's great to see.
Definitely. What was it like getting everyone together for team camp, Joe? Right, I guess I'm right in saying that's the first time all 4 of you as riders have been together, and then also with the team staff as well. Like it's quite a moment because you've planned it in your head. You kind of think how everyone's going to fit together, but you don't know for real, do you, until you get everyone in the same place.
No, great point. It was a fantastic week. To be honest, I think maybe this is the first moment I'm sitting down actually appreciating how that week went and the group we formed to make that week so good. Because for me at the time, the week was pretty hectic. Ollie was, we confirmed his role and brought him on full time maybe a week before that camp. So like the transition of roles, because I'd kind of been managing everything before that. I was trying to ride, train, handle the media launch, handle logistics, everything, and we were transitioning across to Ollie. So from my perspective, I didn't really get to appreciate it as much as I'd like to have. But looking back now, the way everybody clicked, the way everybody worked together, the way everybody supported each other and was stoked for each other was exactly how I'd envisioned. In fact, I think it was better than how I'd envisioned. And that is something like I hope continues, and I'm sure will continue, simply because of the characters we have and their attitudes. But yeah, as you say, you never know until you know. And I really think we've nailed it with this one. So that is, I'd say, maybe, something that I'm most proud of and confident in it is that group of people. And that week definitely inspired confidence for that. But yeah, again, Ollie, I'll let you put your input on that, because maybe you got to appreciate it a little bit more than me, but I think you were just as hectic work-wise.
Yeah, well said. Yeah, well, I think both you and I saw at least midnight every night, didn't we, of that week, mate, as we were going through. So, it was a crazy busy week, but definitely could see it throughout the week, and the way everyone was working together. It wasn't it was by no means an easy week, because of certain elements of the planning were having to happen quite late, with me coming on late. So it was, it wasn't the easiest situation to be thrown into, especially the first sort of 3 days of it. Between me and Joe, we were so busy. I don't think we could do we were trying to set up team bonding things and all that, the usual stuff that you'd want to do as a new group of riders. But we kind of couldn't really do that because there was so much other things that we had to sort. But even with that being the case, I think we got the bikes ready, and fair play to John for this, and John Hall and the Intense guys, and obviously the rest of the brands, to get the bikes ready. I think we were a day later than we'd hoped once we got out there, but a day's pretty blooming good, even not taking that things into consideration. So yeah, it just worked. And like you say, there's more of a test to go yet. 1 week's only 1 week, and obviously we've got a race season to get through. But yeah, really positive signs so far.
Yeah, and a good sign of a team functioning well together is how they deal with adversity. And I think you had a bit of adversity thrown into that week, Ollie. You mentioned there was a broken arm at some point during team camp, which is not a great way to start your first group session together, is it?
Well, I think on it might have even been all on the same day or over 2 days. We had 2 broken trucks and 1 broken arm.
Same day.
It was the same day. Was it one truck? Yeah, it was all the same day, yeah. And it's a blur to me now, because I ended up in hospital with poor young Ryder. Ryder's dad, Randy, it was so funny actually. Randy was on the phone to me, apologising to me for this was first his truck breaking down, and I was apologising to him for being in the truck when it broke down. And so we were just kind of both very apologetic, which I think was so cool, and kind of a sign of hopefully how the team seems to be already, that people both showing true empathy, both see everyone in the team sort of seeing the other person's situation, and not just maybe looking at their own and going, blaming somebody else or whatever. Actually, he's looking and going, okay, that's quite a shit situation. Are you okay? And then doing it back to them. And yeah, it's quite funny. I didn't realise till halfway through a conversation with Randy how we were literally apologising to each other. So yeah, we definitely had a lot of adversity, and weirdly, I'd almost forgotten about it, it was just part of the week. Yeah, we had to take Ryder to hospital, and yeah, we had to fix trucks, but it didn't. That actually, I definitely didn't put a damper on it, and it was just another thing we had to just get sorted on the week. It didn't seem to matter.
Go on, Joe. You're going to add something.
Yeah, and the difficulty was just that we were stranded about an hour and a bit from our accommodation with no way to get home. I don't know, 7, 8, 9 of us probably, with 5 bikes, something like that. And it was already late at night, so the whole day was long. But again, everybody just got together, and HT that day were amazing. They were out shooting with us and helped lift back. And this is where all the brands, the staff, the riders, everybody together just seems to be in it together, if that makes sense. HT, we did us a worldie then, and then Ollie got an Uber to some car rental to get a 7-seater to get the people back, and it was a bit hectic, and you'd never have you could never have planned for that event to happen, but we dealt with it super efficiently and effectively as a group. And as I say, that goes beyond just our team. That was Intense, John Hall and HT crew for digging and helping out. So it's a team effort across the board, and that was so great to see that we all stayed calm and made it successful despite, you know, the challenges that arose that week.
Yeah, pretty much the perfect team building session if you could design one. Not that we'd want to do it, but probably worked out pretty good.
To be fair, I reckon it's worth having the dude in the rental car company on the team as well. Because when I arrived, it was maybe not much bigger than a sort of shed, I would say. You know, we're not talking like enterprise rental cars here. This tiny shed I ended up with this guy, and he was so helpful, fair play, and didn't even charge us that much either, and we had a rental car for the week then. So yeah, like you say, a good a scenario you wouldn't plan and wouldn't want to happen, but actually gave us some really positive team bonding exercises.
That's good to hear, man. Joe, talk to us a little bit about, like, I'm going to use a business term, I guess, deliverables. Are you selling the team to sponsors and incoming brands on results? Are you selling it on media exposure? Like, how are you looking at it?
Yeah, good question. I see an extremely young, exciting team who can all become those big dogs, should we say. And so that's one aspect of it. It's like, forming new champions, creating, for me, the platform to enable that to become a reality. And so I believe that, as I've said before, every rider that we have on the team has a very high chance, or should I say high chance, there's only very few who can make it to be a champion, but I think every single one of them are very well positioned to make it all the way. And I think the brands can also see that, some more than others, depending on how well you know the athletes and the riders and what you've seen on them. But that's definitely one aspect. The second thing, which you can't say too much on right now, is definitely a kind of media standpoint. Won't go into any further details at this point. Would love to, but just can't really. And yeah, I think those are probably the two sort of most valuable aspects in which we discuss with the sponsors. And I think they're pretty buzzing with it. And here, as I said, every single sponsor is well thought out, and that's long term. So I have to be able to see a long term partnership and vision. Of course, unplanned events might happen, and we might have to make changes at some point. But every partner that has been selected for 24, I can see a long term partnership with, who will build and with these riders, with our program, with our media outlet, and benefit, for the long term, everybody. So yeah, I think those are the kind of the two main points that are pushed across.
Yeah. And what about you for your own riding, man? Like, it sounds like you've been pretty hectic for the last few months, at least, pulling all of this stuff together. I can only imagine how much work that involves. But like, bringing Ollie on board, hopefully you can offload some of that, but it's still going to keep you busy, right? How are you managing to balance like training, preparation for the season? Do you feel you need to like lower your expectations going into this year, or like how are you looking at it all?
Yeah, definitely not lowering my expectations. In fact, quite the opposite. Expectations, you don't really want to have them, but I'm more confident than I have been in the position I'm sat now. Yes, it's been super hectic, and as an athlete personally, I always try to get 9 to 10 hours sleep from like a heavy training perspective, like recover right, train right, blah blah blah. I'll be honest, like the camp in California was more 6 hours sleep, full day riding, and then full day of whatever it was the team had to do in the evenings or first thing in the morning, and that's not sustainable as an athlete who wants to perform at their best. But I think that was kind of short term. It's not going to continue like that. Obviously, from that initial phone call from Intense in August at World Champs to let's say January now was like hours I've never worked before. Still trying to train, and to be fair, it's good because the training puts you in a good mindset to work, and the work makes you want to get out on the bike, and so it actually plays into each other's favour. But it's just like the longevity of it. I don't think I could work that much, that frequently, and for it to be sustainable throughout a race season to perform at a high level. So as I say, that's where Ollie's come in and there are other, members of the team who are helping take over all the stuff I've been doing, so I can refocus on being an athlete. And of course, yes, Chris, there's still going to be stuff that needs doing, but it will be minimal compared to what it has been the last few months. So yeah, for me, like as I say, go on, Ollie.
No, sorry, Joe, I didn't mean to interrupt, but yeah, I was just going to back up what Joe's saying there, that number one, Joe really enjoys that, clearly really enjoys like the setting up of the team and the ownership side of things. And, I have to totally commend him and what he's done, because it's been insane. Like, and so many people have, even me, have thought he was dreaming, and other people along the lines of just think he's crazy with the time of the industry, la la la. But he's got that kind of clear understanding of what he kind of wants it to look like, the positive attitude, the types of brands, how the kind of thing wants to look, and he's very clearly relayed that to me. In fact, I don't know whether it's funny how I've sort of got the information really, but it's been very obvious. It sort of oozes out of him, I would say, in terms of how he wants it to be. So you just have to credit him 100% in that. But you're right in asking the question, Chris, because I also think, I say, like, keep saying to Joe, I'm like, right, now go and be a rider kind of thing, because he does enjoy this side of it, if you know what I mean. Like he really does, and that's cool, and that's why he's so passionate and managed to pull together such a good program. But that, as Joe admits, it can't carry on that way. Like if he carries on doing it too much with those 5 hours sleep and lots of admin duties and relationships that he's doing, if that carries on too much, then he will definitely succeed in one thing, and that'll be the team ownership thing. But the other, we can't do it all. The other thing may well slip. I think though at the moment Joe's really aware of it. I'm really aware of it. I think his extra hunger with it being his own team is actually going to help him more this year, even though maybe he's had a couple hours less on the bike before Christmas. But now he's in New Zealand. He'll get that bike time. I'm trying to leave him alone in terms of like management duties and just get on with stuff, and only try to. I think over the next week the sway's already started, and I think over the next couple of weeks it's going to be really good, where we talk Joe's speed on the bike rather than his efficiency behind the laptop.
Yeah,
fair. Yeah. Joe, have you spent much time chatting to Bernard about this? Because he seems to have managed to find a way to make performance and team ownership, team management work together super well. It maybe took him a little while to get it all gelling, but it's obviously doable, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I have thought of Bernard a few times throughout this whole process. I think he was 24 when he took over the pivot team, or started the pivot team, and I think it took him a few years to kind of get the people in place to run it. I think he still does an awful lot, but just kind of settle into it and focus back on performance. But yeah, BK is BK. He's always going to have a ton going on. It's not just the team, it's the social media aspect, the YouTube, now BK Sport, and fair play, he manages it all really well, still right up there at the top of the World Cups. So personally, no, I haven't spoken to him whatsoever about it, but I have kind of used him as a reference in my brain to see what he's done and how he's done it. And I don't think I want to be quite as full on and as hectic as Bernard. It seems like he has an awful lot going on, but it's inspirational to see how he has done it and still succeeded with both the team and his riding career himself. For me, the team that we have now, I think, is the best kind of standpoint for performance for me that I've ever had. As I say, the environment couldn't be any better, and the product couldn't be any better. So of course it's just now sitting back into being an athlete, or should I say not sitting back but driving forward more as an athlete than a team owner. So that's the transition I need to make, and having made that transition, or in that period now, I think it's the best position I've ever been in to perform, and I'm hugely focused on, my goal is to win a World Cup overall as an elite, and I think that's realistic. It's just going to take a bit of time settling in and hopefully keep things consistent with everybody we have, and I'm going to do everything I can to make that push and make that a reality.
Yeah. How fast do you feel the bike is compared to last year's bike, right? I assume the chassis is fundamentally the same as what you're on towards the end of last season, but obviously the build kit, the package is pretty different. Like, have you had a chance to back, or what's your general feel for performance on it?
Yeah, chassis is pretty much the same. It's just the production version, which is basically identical to what we ran at the end of last year. So no huge jumps there. It's so nice to actually jump on a bike and ride the same one week in, week out. The last couple of years it's been, new bike every couple of weeks, like testing different things here, different things there. So that in itself is hugely beneficial, just getting on the same rig week in, week out, which, as I say, is now unbelievable. And then product-wise, yeah, of course, everything's different. Suspension is completely different. The way the Oliens rides is very, very different to the Fox, but in my view, it is only better. So that's just been an easy transition. Components-wise, Conti, already done a lot of testing on those in the past, so I understood how they rode and was confident in how they rode before making that decision. So it wasn't like, are they going to be any good or not? Like, I knew they're good. I understand how they feel before, confirming that deal. E13, I say, hasn't changed, so super familiar with the products there, so well set. And then, cockpit's different, brakes are the same, but cockpit is, added another increase, like a performance benefit, I believe. And that's exactly why that move was decided. So again, I don't think we've made a step back in any way, only a step forward, and none of them have been that challenging that far at all. It's just, learning a few unique things to each product and getting them set up right. But in no way has anything been a step back. It's all just super exciting moving forward. So yeah, hasn't been too bad, that side of things.
Good stuff. And Ollie, team camps seem to be a bigger and bigger part of things these days. Like downhill bike time and time functioning in that team unit is really important to get people ready to be working together well as a unit at the races. But it's expensive business getting everyone together, scheduling it, making sure you've got somewhere that's ideally dry and warm and you've got mechanics there and all the kit that you need. You had the test out in California, which hopefully went well, other than the odd bits of breakdowns and broken arms. But are you going to be able to get the team together again pre-season? Like, what does the plan look like between now and the first World Cup for you guys?
Yeah, there's probably two sides of that, really. So naturally, with Louise being in New Zealand and Ryder out in America, as you say, like financially flying people around for a camp each month and stuff like that is less realistic. But what I'm trying to do is be in, pretty much weekly, like I've got a call with Louise tomorrow, but weekly communication with each of the riders so that they can still progress their testing. And by testing, I mean rider and bike, like there's two things that need testing, and make sure that they're all doing them, but sort of not on their own, if you know what I mean. So although it literally will be on their own, although Joe being in New Zealand at the moment is really useful because he'll have some time with Louise, but at least there's like progression. So it's not just like they all arrive like come spring, summertime, and off we go. So that's the first thing, making sure that happens. And then secondly, so the final camps, and there's many reasons to have a camp, isn't there? But as you've already described, this kind of time together, team working together, team operating together without any broken vans, is the other side of it. So yeah, we will do team camps, but that's going to be more April time, so that'll be closer to the season. We'll get that time together. We'll do some of those sort of simulations as a race team. Make sure that we're well. I obviously well practiced, but I should be well rehearsed. Sounds kind of like a funny word, really, but I want to make sure that we don't kind of come out of round one and feel new. I want us to feel like everybody from a rider to a mechanic and every single person in between kind of knows what their tasks are throughout that race week. And it is a race week, isn't it? It's anything from travelling out on Monday through to the race runs and then travelling back on the following Monday kind of thing. So yeah, rehearsing will be done through April and final camps. And then, like I say, just trying to make sure that the communication is really good throughout those couple of months in between.
Yeah. What about you, Ollie, though, right? We've got... Oh, go on. Sorry, Jay.
Just to add to that, like, of course, flying from California and New Zealand, one is not really efficient for the riders. They kind of need a set place to like train and do their work rather than, different time zones, travel all the time. That's obviously something we've got to be aware of, but equally, we've made sure that the riders, as Ollie says, can make that progress on their own with the support of the team, communication-wise, but with the mechanic on hand. So we've made sure that Louise has a mechanic in New Zealand. She wanted Casey Till. So Casey's on board in New Zealand to really help with the testing side, from a day, not every day, but, every month they're doing work and checking in. And the same with Ryder in California. His dad, Randy, is going to be his mechanic and is super involved. So they've got their own setup that is being pushed. And again, tuning back into the team and making sure, or helping them move in the right direction. And then back in the UK, Oscar, Stout, our head mechanics over there. So everybody's kind of doing their own thing in their own area. But just with communication kept, I think, really well with Ollie on, are we moving in the right direction? Is there something we should try or shouldn't try? Blah, 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 blah. So, yeah, sorry, Chris, back to you.
No, that's good. It sounds like you got it dialed. Ollie, I was going to ask you, the riders are out there getting physically ready, getting bikes ready, all of that side of things. Like, is there stuff that you're working on to be an awesome team manager? Like, how are you thinking about your sort of preparation for the season, I guess? I'm guessing there's a lot of day-to-day tasks involved, like sorting everything out, booking things and planning, but like, is there sort of personal preparation? Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it does make sense totally. Yeah, there's a few sides of that, and I've thought about this, and probably obviously, and I think this is why me and Joe work quite well together, because we do think through this stuff. But even down to like I don't even know if I want to share this, but it's even down to my own fitness. Like I've been doing a lot of running recently, like a lot more like longer distance cardio recently, because for me, I know it's going to be super busy. I'm going to be trackside. I want to put my all into that side of the role, and Joe and I haven't spoken much about this, but the performance element of my role is huge, and it's what I obviously have more experience in, and then we're adding in the management stuff. So for me, being prepared from a physical side of things is actually quite an important thing, because they are going to be tiring weeks. I'm probably not going to sleep an awful lot through those weeks, but need to make sure that I'm in good shape to be able to do that. So yeah, there's definitely that side of it, which maybe sounds a little bit random, but is quite important if I'm taking on this kind of dual role. Like some of the bigger teams, they'll have like maybe Canyon and Syndicate, teams like this, they'll have a team manager and then they'll have a trackside person kind of thing. And Joe actually questioned me quite a lot whether I wanted to do both, and I actually really did. Like it's quite a big thing to me to be able to take that, because I think they do actually overlap more than maybe we would think. So yeah, preparation in terms of that. And then the only other stuff for me is I come back to this rehearsal thing, but it's just making sure that everything, and anybody who's worked with me before know that I'll be like this, but that everything is kind of visioned and thought through all the way through that journey. We will still miss stuff for sure. Like that. That's how it is. If you're not missing stuff, then there's nothing else to learn apparently. So we will still miss stuff. But if I can just make sure that I've sort of seen through each of the days, and then seen through who's taking on each task, and through each of those days, then there's not going to be any questions on the day. There's not going to be a why wasn't that done, because the plan will be that we'll have somebody in place that will do that. And if I'm a prime example would be if I'm on track, doing my line spotting role, but then some communication needs to happen with the UCI, then I need to make sure that I have somebody in place in and around the pits that's then going to go and take that on. So it's, things like that, just making sure that it's well thought through. But I think thought through, again, I re-say it, but if you're just listening to Joe, and for me, re-listening to Joe in this kind of summary of the past few months going on this podcast, he has thought through all of those things, and then that's led on to me to then carry on that kind of process. So yeah, that's probably the biggest side of my prep, really, the thinking it through and getting the plan in place.
Yeah, and at least the first round is at Fort William, which is a venue that's very familiar to anyone in the British scene for starters and most people on the World Cup. So you've kind of got a bit of a leg up in that you're not, if Poland was the first round that no one's been to and no one knows what's going on, it would be a bit more of a headache, right? But I guess that Fort William start helps you a bit, Joe.
Yeah, of course. It's familiar, as Ollie said, and I've said on this podcast. We want to turn up to the first World Cup, and for riders and staff and everybody to be as familiar with each other as possible, whether that's with the equipment, with each other. And Fort William definitely helps that because it's a familiar environment in terms of location, track, etc. And Poland will be a whole new challenge, but I think we'll be better set for it after one World Cup together at Fort William.
Definitely, man. So where do you see this all going in the future, Joe? You've sort of alluded to the fact that a big truck was in your vision, so it suggests that you've got like grand ambitions for it. Is this something you want to see grow?
100%, yeah. I suppose, beyond the big truck and the glamour and all that, my sort of big focus is, I want this to be a program that every rider wants to be on. What excites me the most is kind of scouting talent and then nurturing it and like helping those people develop into champions or the big dogs like I referred to earlier. I think that is what excites me more than, okay, my motivation is to get 2 million budget and go out and sign like Bruni, Loris Vergier and whoever else. It's like, that's not my drive, but my drive is to, as I say, scout those who, I think I have a very good eye for talent. Maybe that's just a bit cocky, but like I've always looked at riders over the last few years and thought, God, like I wish I was in a position to be able to take this rider on and help them develop. It's just something I'm into. I think a lot of, professional athletes are a lot more selfish than that. They actually would prefer not help others be competitors to themselves in the years to come. But it's just something I've always wanted to do. So to now be in a position to, look for that talent, spot that talent, and then bring them on board and hopefully give them the platform to really help them develop as a rider, that's kind of my main motivation. And of course, I don't want to let the riders go when they get to that point. I want to support them all the way through their career. But it's like, that whole, looking for talent, nurturing it, bring it on, and hopefully with that, the team size in terms of lorry and assembly grows too. But of course, the main focus is not right. Let's get a big truck as soon as we can. No, not at all. It's more focused around the riders, and hopefully that leads on to that in the future.
Yeah. Before we wrap up, I'm keen to hear your thoughts on the junior racing for this year, specifically the men's, because you've got 2 riders in that category. It's going to be a pretty stacked category this year, right? There's a lot of hot talent coming in the younger ranks.
Yeah, I think the junior racing is super exciting. It's a great time to have 2 juniors. With them now being televised and riders starting to win elite World Cups at a far younger age than they ever used to. The dynamic of the sport's changing. It's getting younger, and the junior races are getting far more competitive and more exciting to watch. So that's obviously the transition of the sport right now, and we're very much with that, with having 2 exciting and promising juniors. I think watching those guys race is going to be just exciting as watching the elite races, because they're willing to throw it down more than anybody, I think, and there's not the same level of consistency with that group because of their age and experience, so anything can happen at any moment. It's quite a race to watch, and that scenes inside of our sport is only growing, so super cool to play a big part of that and be involved with 2 super exciting juniors.
Yeah, definitely, man. Well, I'm stoked for you. Like, I can't even imagine what it's taken to get from the middle of last season to where you are now. So massive respect for you for pulling it all together and making it happen. I hope the results come flooding your way for you and the whole team over the season. I look forward to seeing how it all goes. If people want to keep up to date with the team, like, where should they be looking?
Intense Factory Racing Instagram account. Obviously, each athlete's pages, which you'll find from the Intense Factory Racing Instagram account. And then we've just launched a YouTube, which is brand new, Intense Factory Racing. and then our website is due to launch any day now. So yeah, those are probably the three main areas right now. So yeah, fire away on there.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll stick some links in the show notes so people can find all that stuff. But yeah, thanks guys. It's been really interesting chatting. I will definitely be watching to see how you get on this season. All the best. And yeah, catch up with you both later in the year.
Let me just jump on one thing, sorry. Management wise, so like myself, Ollie, Mark Griffiths, John Stout is kind of what we're classing as a management crew. Like the passion from all of those people has been phenomenal. They're not just like, oh, it's a job. I'm going to take the salary and make it, you know, like do the limited amount of work. It's like Ollie, Stout, Mark, they are all super passionate and throwing hours at this far beyond their paycheck. So I just want to, you know, give a huge shout out to that management team, because with like the direction I've had from all of those people, it would never have happened, you know, without, you know, all of that. So to all them boys, huge thanks. The graft is unreal and the passion is unreal. And so to them, thank you very much. And Chris, thanks for having us on. Great to be back on the channel. And yeah, hopefully see you at the races as well this year.
Nice one, Joe. Well said, mate. And it's a pleasure to have you. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Chris.